Imagine a young couple in Ohio, the Millers, who saved for years to renovate their kitchen. They dreamed of new cabinets, modern appliances, and a space where their family could gather for meals and celebrations. Every dollar was carefully set aside, every plan made with hope and excitement. But when they finally sought quotes in 2025, every estimate was thousands higher than expected. The numbers on the page didn't match their careful budgeting, and the shock was immediate. The contractor explained, prices for wood, steel, and appliances had soared, not just from inflation, but because of tariffs, a hidden tax on imported goods. These tariffs had quietly driven up the cost of nearly everything they needed, from countertops to cabinet handles. The Millers' dream was suddenly out of reach, their savings stretched thin. The kitchen they'd imagined now seemed like a distant possibility. This isn't just their story. All across the country, families face similar disappointments and tough choices. Across America, families and small businesses felt the sting. The impact rippled through communities, affecting not just homeowners, but everyone who relied on affordable goods and services. A furniture maker in North Carolina faced skyrocketing costs for imported materials, forcing her to raise prices and consider layoffs. Her business, built over decades, was suddenly at risk. Tariffs, meant to protect American industry, were making life harder for the very people they were supposed to help. Instead of boosting local jobs, they threatened livelihoods and dreams. These costs weren't labeled tariff on receipts. They were quietly embedded in every purchase, invisible but unavoidable, making it harder for families to get ahead. For the Millers, it meant delaying their remodel, putting their plans on hold indefinitely. For business owners, it meant tough choices and sleepless nights, wondering how to keep their doors open. Tariffs aren't just abstract policy, they're a direct hit to American wallets and livelihoods, affecting daily life in ways most people never see coming. These personal struggles set the stage for a legal and political battle that would reach the Supreme Court, where the stakes were nothing less than the rules that shape our economy. At stake, who really controls America's economic future? Is it Congress, the courts, or the president? And how much power should one president have over the price of your kitchen table, your business, and your family's future? So, what is a tariff? You've probably heard the word tossed around in news stories about trade wars or international negotiations, but what does it actually mean for you and the things you buy? Simply put, a tariff is a tax that governments place on goods coming into a country from abroad. It's one of the oldest tools in the economic playbook, and it's still used today. When foreign products arrive in the US, the government charges a fee, making them more expensive for American businesses and shoppers. This fee is collected at the border, before the goods even hit store shelves. The main goal? To encourage Americans to buy domestic products instead, giving local companies a competitive edge and supporting jobs at home. Tariffs have been used for centuries, not just to protect local industries, but also to raise money for the government. In fact, before income taxes, tariffs were a major source of federal revenue. For example, if an imported washing machine costs $700, a 25% tariff bumps it to $875. Suddenly, the $800 American-made machine looks like a better deal. This price difference can sway shoppers' decisions. But here's the catch. The importer usually passes that extra cost down the line, so consumers end up paying more at the register, whether they realize it or not. That's why tariffs are often called a hidden tax. You don't see it on your receipt, but you definitely feel it in higher prices for everyday goods, from electronics to groceries. Tariffs can also spark retaliation from other countries, leading to tense negotiations and escalating trade disputes. For instance, if the US taxes Chinese steel, China might respond by taxing American soybeans or other exports, creating a back-and-forth cycle. This tit-for-tat can escalate into a full-blown trade war, hurting not just big companies, but also farmers, manufacturers, and everyday consumers across the country. What starts as protection for one industry can ripple out, damaging others, and even disrupt global supply chains, leading to shortages or delays. The result? A complex web of higher prices, lost sales, and economic uncertainty that can affect the entire economy. Tariffs may sound simple on paper, but their real-world impact is anything but straightforward. They can tip the balance in unexpected ways. And when tariffs are used as a political tool, the consequences can be far-reaching, shaping economies, jobs, and even international relationships for years to come. President Trump made tariffs central to his America First agenda, arguing that unfair trade deals had gutted U.S. manufacturing. To impose sweeping tariffs, he invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, a law meant for true national emergencies. Traditionally, Congress set trade policy, but Trump's administration claimed that foreign trade practices were an extraordinary threat, justifying emergency action. The administration also used a Cold War-era law to justify tariffs on steel and aluminum, citing national security. Critics argued this was economic protectionism, not a real emergency. This bold use of executive power set up a constitutional showdown over who controls U.S. trade policy. The tariffs triggered fierce backlash from businesses and states. Companies relying on imported materials, automakers, tech firms, even bourbon distillers, saw costs soar and exports plummet as other countries retaliated. Over 3,500 companies and a dozen states sued, arguing the president had overstepped his authority and hurt the economy. States with big agricultural and port industries lost billions in exports and jobs. The core legal argument: IEEPA was never meant for long-term economic protectionism. By using emergency powers for trade, the president bypassed Congress's constitutional role. The fight was about more than tariffs. It was about the balance of power in American government. The stage was set for a Supreme Court battle. The legal fight began in the U.S. Court of International Trade. Businesses and states argued the president had abused IEEPA, using a national emergency as cover for protectionist policy. The government countered that the president has broad discretion in emergencies. The lower court sided with the challengers, ruling the tariffs an overreach of executive power. The administration appealed, and the case reached the Supreme Court. The core question: who really sets U.S. trade policy, the president or Congress? The answer would reshape the balance of power for years to come. In a historic decision, the Supreme Court struck down the administration's broad tariffs. The majority ruled that IEEPA was never meant for long-term trade disputes. It was for true emergencies. The court reaffirmed that Congress, not the president, holds the power to set trade policy. The justices found the administration's national security argument too broad and unconvincing. Allowing such sweeping executive power, they warned, would upset the Constitution's balance. The ruling ordered the tariffs lifted, delivering a major defeat to the administration. It was a victory for businesses, states, and the principle of legislative authority. The decision sent a clear message: even in times of crisis, presidential power has limits. The rules of trade must be written by the people's representatives. The Supreme Court's decision sent shockwaves through the nation, with immediate and far-reaching effects that touched nearly every American. With tariffs suddenly gone, prices on everyday goods like steel, electronics, and furniture dropped noticeably, offering much-needed relief to both consumers and businesses struggling with high costs. Companies that relied on imports found themselves more competitive in the global market, able to lower prices and expand operations, while industries that had been shielded by tariffs now faced new and difficult challenges, forcing them to adapt or innovate. The ruling shifted the power to set trade policy back to Congress, ending the era of unilateral presidential tariffs and restoring the constitutional balance of power. From now on, future trade policy would require open negotiation and compromise in the legislature, with lawmakers debating the best path forward for the country. The decision restored a crucial check and balance in government, ensuring that no single branch could act alone on matters that affect millions of lives. It reaffirmed that the president is not above the law, and that the rules shaping our economy must be set by elected lawmakers, accountable to the people. For families like the Millers, it meant hope for affordable dreams once again, whether buying a new home, a car, or simply putting food on the table. For the nation as a whole, it marked a turning point, a powerful reminder that democracy, not decree, shapes our economic destiny and secures our freedoms. The path forward would be written by the people, through their representatives in Congress, ensuring that every voice has a chance to be heard in shaping the future.